All right, we're live.
David Lee Scales, welcome to another week in January 2026. Off to a bang. How you doing?
Uh, um, I don't know if a bang is good or bad, but it's funny to think about the New Year's. Everybody's like, yeah, this year's going to be so much better than the past, praying for blessings and peace in our time and all that sort of stuff. The first 2 weeks of January have been wild.
Crazy, crazy overall, and crazy for you personally.
Crazy overall, crazy in the news. Personally, everything's copacetic.
Man, just gets crazier and crazier though, don't it?
It seems to be. I mean, that's been my experience in life.
Yeah. I always weigh, or a couple years ago, I guess, when people were like, I guess since COVID, right? People are like, we are just living in unprecedented wild times. And I'm like, everybody is just too myopic about today, right? Like, what was life back in, Vietnam War protests and stuff, civil rights riots going around and blah, 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 blah. But not discounting those times. Those were wild times too. But it certainly does feel like life is moving weird and crazy and fast.
It's moving faster than ever. I think there, whether or not times are more troubling now than in the past, I think is up for debate. And I don't know that I could come up with an answer, but it's definitely moving faster and there's more information available.
That is sure true. Well, did you take a few moments out last night to just relax into the Golden Globes?
I did not, but the wife was checking updates on Instagram, including Nikki Glazer's opening monologue. And so I overheard it coming from her phone, but that's the
Uh,
extent of it.
I sat down and actually watched Nikki Glazer's opening monologue and the first couple offerings from the Golden Globes.
What were your thoughts? First on the monologue and second from the offerings.
Yeah, so I was, you watch these monologues and I was just waiting to see, okay, what's the reaction and reception going to be? I thought Nikki Glazer, of course, as a roast expert, right? I think at this point we can say, I know there's that Jeff Ross dude or whatever, like the kind of the old school classic roast, but Nikki Glazer really put herself at the peak of this during the roast of Tom Brady, I feel, is when she blasted onto everyone's consciousness with just such well-timed zingers. And so I was waiting for her and wondering how this monologue was going to go, and it was like roast light, right? Like a very polite roast.
Yeah. But I thought very um, scathing too,
Yeah,
like much more polite, but the jokes still packed a punch.
yeah, very funny. Liked how she and certain of her packed punches were spot on too. Like she mentioned Leonardo DiCaprio's something like, "Wow, you've done all this, in your life. You've whatever Academy Awards and da 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 da, all before your girlfriend turns 30." And chuckle, 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 chuckle from the audience, and then backed it up with, "Look, that's all we know about you. You got to give us something else, Leo. Like, the only thing we know about you is that you date young women. There's nothing else out there." I had to look back, and she went back to a Teen Beat article where he said, I think he was 12 or 13 or something, and he said his favorite food was, quote, pasta, pasta, and more pasta. That's all she had on Leo. And he sat there laughing like a good sport and realized again, oddly, I have done a 180 on Leo. I was real mad on this very show, I think, about Leonardo DiCaprio, always wearing a mask and just being a butthole. And then realizing, no, he is so good by never overfilling the feed with Leonardo DiCaprio's life is genius. I never get tired of him, I realized, and it's because he has put himself in timeout, more or less.
Yeah. I I think that's a smart approach, you know, for him to lengthen his career. And also, I like the private aspect of it that Nikki referred to is, we don't really know a ton about him. However, he does show up in very dubious locations at dubious parties.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's no doubt in my mind that he would have been very much on Epstein Island had he grown up in the time of Epstein.
I mean, I think there's photos of him at Diddy's parties. There's, I don't think any of his behavior, from what I've seen, it doesn't seem to be illegal or criminal. It just seems like he loves to do drugs and young women.
Yeah. Well, good on him for only being photographed at dubious parties, doing dubious things in a mask.
Yeah, look, can't really knock him for what his lifestyle choices are. And again, not criminal, so definitely can't knock that. But uh, I wouldn't necessarily model my morality after his. And but I also understand like when you've been in the object of everybody's affection from from prepubescent teen basically,
Yes.
and as wealthy as he is, how else could it possibly turn out?
I mean, my goodness. Yeah, the so watching the Golden Globes, it's always strange like back in the day, I suppose you would see these rooms, right? And so this Golden Globes was at the Hollywood Hilton. I think it was the Hollywood Hilton. I don't know what it was. Somewhere, some hotel in Hollywood. And it's this ballroom, right? And I think watching it as a younger person, you just think, oh, infinite space, kind of infinite amount of people there, whatever. But then realizing this is a tiny hotel ballroom. So the tables are only A-list stars and A-list producers and or directors and or people involved in the nominated film. So it's a packed tiny room of only glittering stars.
Yeah. Um, Imagine a terrorist threat, like in your scenario that you were talking about
Yep, St.
for a
Bart's.
potential book idea, the
Yeah.
St. Bart's book idea. This could be the setting for that.
I mean, you take out that room and you've wiped out basically every single notable movie star on the face of the earth just like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We'd be left with Kardashians, with YouTubers, we'd be left with Mr. Beast and Kim K.
It would be a fast expedition to terrible content, basically. Did you see the images of Sean Penn smoking?
Yeah, I didn't see the images of smoking. I read it today. I read that, yeah, Nikki Glazer did the funny one of look at Sean Penn. Everyone, all these other stars are getting work done. And you have decided to go the other way and turn yourself into a leather handbag, uh, which was very
His
funny.
Yeah, he has not aged gracefully. He always had an odd face anyways. Kind of like I don't know, it looked like it was constructed of putty or
Yeah.
clay or something like that and it's only like drooped further. But yeah, I didn't see the video of it. I just saw a photo of him like taking a drag, trying to do it kind of discreetly like he has his head down, but he's sitting at his table in that ballroom smoking a ciggy.
And not a vape, not a something that is either smells like strawberries or dissipates into the ethers fairly quickly. Those rooms are no longer equipped like, or I'm sure that room is no longer equipped. It's not like a Vegas casino, right? Where in Vegas somehow their filtration system is such where a bunch of old ladies can be sitting smoking cigarettes at one-armed bandits and just the smoke gets sucked up where you don't even really unless it's a crap old casino, you don't really smell anything.
That
So
is fascinating. They do an incredible job with that.
an incredible job, but I can't imagine the Hollywood Hilton or wherever that was has that kind of thing. So one cigarette for sure would have filled that whole room with cigarette smoke.
Right, but is anybody going to say anything to Sean
Heck,
Penn?
heck no. And it's so on brand for Sean Penn. I'm sure that if they didn't smell smoke in there and Sean Penn was there, people would think something's wrong. Something is off here.
This is we've had this discussion before with Snoop Dogg. Same thing. If he didn't light up a joint and smoke weed in that room, people would be like, "What the hell, dude?
Something's
This
wrong.
isn't the normal Snoop. Yeah, it's not
No,
what I'm expecting from you."
we brought you here for this. Have you ever flown on an airplane where people were smoking cigarettes?
Maybe when I was young, but no, I mean, not I can't really remember specifically.
I remember my first
When did they
flight.
out? When did they outlaw it? Do you know?
I can't remember, but it must have been my first flight to Cairo, Egypt when I was 19 years old. So would have been 95, I think. Oh, what is that? How many years ago is that? That is
30,
95, 30 years
30
ago.
years.
It was outlawed then, but I remember getting on that flight from New York to Cairo. And as soon as the plane took off, I just started smelling cigarette smoke. And I was like, what, is the plane burning? Like, what's happening? And looked at the back, and all the Egyptians had just run to the back of the plane and just started hacking. So I think illegal then, but also on brand for Egyptians.
So no, it wasn't illegal then. I just pulled up. The internet says a federal ban prohibiting smoking on U.S. domestic flights less than 2 hours was 1988. Then there was an extension of that to 6 hour flights, which was 1990. And then in the year 2000, the ban expanded to cover all domestic and international flights arriving in or departing from US.
In 90.
So no, in 2000.
Oh, wow. So, yeah. So it was fully legal back then. I could have joined those Egyptians smoking my Cleopatras. That's the cigarette in Egypt. The Cleo is pretty amazing.
Uh, yeah, well, I'm not a smoker, and I'm all for following decorum of the room at a event like this. However, I also love Sean Penn pulling this one.
If you were sitting next to Sean Penn at his table and Sean Penn pulled out his pack and handed you one, would you decline or would you just think, when in Rome?
I would decline.
You'd say,
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to smoke a cigarette, so I would have, if I would have accepted, I would have looked like an idiot. So I'll stick to my game plan.
better, I think. Well, speaking of sticking to your game plan, uh, got a lot of heat over on The Grit. Sure, there's very few listeners to Noble Rot who aren't aware of The Grit, but a lot of talk, especially in the YouTube comments, about staying in your lane, basically. You guys stay in your lane. Stop bringing politics into The Grit. Grit is, of course, the surf show. What are your thoughts about staying in your lane?
Depends. It's situational. I do want to discuss this or the feedback that we got specifically on extra fine grit a little bit deeper. So I'll save some of those thoughts. But in general, I can appreciate the sentiment. Like, it's one thing, I or the sentiment that I can appreciate most that people gave us was, I come here for escapism. And so your lane is, irreverent conversations about surfing. That's what you guys are known for. That's what we're here for. And so stick to that. That I understand. If they're saying stay in your lane because we said something that was, offensive to them because their beliefs are different than our statements that we were sharing, that I don't necessarily take it into consideration as much.
Yeah, well, let's get into it on the extra fine grit over on Patreon later. I'll be
What
curious
about well?
as
What
to your.
about the idea though of staying in your lane? Do you the alternative to that is we have transition lanes over the years, even on the grit. Like the show just evolves over time, and we discuss it's different than it was when we started. So I think that evolution, getting out of your lane, allows you to evolve, which I think is a good thing.
100%, I agree. And also, to me, uh, when I think of surfing, I think surfing as big tent, right? In terms of what can be included in a surfing conversation. And anything surfers are talking about is therefore, to me, a surf conversation, right? If surfers, of course, are talking about politics, or of course, are talking about this, and there's surfers who are having opinions about it and putting their opinions out there. And so for me, it's all surf. It's still surf talk, even though we're not, directly talking about a double channel bottomed board or a raked fin or whatever the case may be. Like, that's my aperture on it. But I, again, like you, I suppose, I understand people wanting to get away from political talk or from, hyper partisan talk and getting into a place where they can just be, okay, I don't have to think about that right now. Understand that sentiment.
Yeah, totally understand that sentiment. I think after reading through the feedback and thinking about it over the course of the weekend, I guess where I land is all that may be true, but there's some events that are so outrageous and some things that simply need to be said.
Sure. And to ignore them, I feel, is at our peril and at the world's peril. If we're all boxed in to this is a time for this is a time for this, and without any crossing over, I mean, as you've stated multiple times, particularly when it comes to Thanksgiving, the best bite is the bite where the cranberry sauce and the gravy and the potatoes and a little bit of turkey are all mixed into one.
Yeah. And look, I think we've probably all met people in our lives that are, I don't know, like what is it, the Stepford wife? Where they're like got a plastered on smile and everything is hunky dory all the time. And those people are polite and they're nice to be around because things are pleasant, but it's always superficial. You're never going to get into a meaningful conversation with that person because they're never going to just say to you, like, oh man, I had a crappy day and here's what my challenges are in my life. So I think for you and I to go from week to week where we're not addressing some atrocities that are happening in the world. And, we try to frame it as it relates to surfing. We framed that one as here's two surf personalities having a fight on the internet. So let's kind of discuss it. And invariably, we share our opinion and personal viewpoints throughout the discussion. But I think that it is okay to not surf escapism is great, but let's not do it to the extent of being ignorant as to there are real world implications that will affect you and I.
I agree. On that note, I suppose another thing that I learned about this week, have you ever heard about Williams syndrome, David Lee Scales? And I don't know if this is William. I think it was spelled Williams syndrome in the story I read. So it must be Williams syndrome, not William syndrome.
No, I have no idea.
So just read about this. Apparently they framed it as the article. It's the opposite of autism, or the opposite end of the spectrum at autism in terms of, so autistic people tend to have difficult time making connection with other people, right? That's one of the, I don't know, I don't want to say symptom, but whatever, the look of autism, right? This one apparently, yeah, characterizations. This one, Williams syndrome, is that you make deep, or you feel deep, warming connections with strangers on the street. Like everyone who comes into your life, you just feel deeply connected to.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. So not only have I never heard of the syndrome, I've never heard of anybody even experiencing that.
It was a shock to me too. I read a bit about it. It was on the BBC and I was like, this is fascinating to me, that because it's just beyond being friendly or being nice or, being conversant with strangers. It is experiencing deep, profound connections with absolute strangers.
Fascinating. I would love to learn more. And now I have to tell you about a podcast called The Telepathy Tapes. Have we talked about this?
You don't think I've listened to the telepathy tapes, David Lee Scales? I haven't listened to them. Wife was big into the telepathy tapes.
Okay, so you're well aware.
I'm well-ish aware. I never listened, but heard all kinds of discussion from the wife.
So do you believe in telepathy?
I know that the telepathy tapes have been, or people have tried to debunk them. What I heard on the telepathy tapes, and to explain to the listener who has not heard of the telepathy tapes, it's basically people who are uncommunicative, right? Was it autism, or what specifically was it? Yeah, hit me.
Yes, yeah, it was autism. So, the Telepathy Tapes is a podcast series, and it's examining the research and the work of a doctor who is studying nonverbal people with nonverbal autism, and of all ages. There's a lot of kids that are featured in this, but there are older, young adults as well that get featured. And I will just kind of cut to the point and spoil it by saying that the research is undeniable. And the experiments that they do are totally without fault. And basically, these non-autistic, nonverbal people with autism are able to communicate telepathically with each other and with usually their closest caregiver. So often it's the mother, sometimes it's the father, sometimes it's a nanny, sometimes it's a teacher at school, and they're able to do it from across the world. So often they are in the same room, and it's like day to day stuff where the mom, it all started, with people just experiencing it. And then the researcher ends up finding these people, or they find the researcher. And then she goes and conducts experiments with the kids or the autistic peoples. And then they can kind of extrapolate it further to further distances. Like, it starts off, they're in the same room, but then they try other rooms, then they try from across the world, and it still works. But basically, if you're interested, if any of this sounds interesting, I'm skeptical in general with anything. Like, I came out of this totally convinced this exists. And basically, what the researchers come to identify is that it isn't telepathy in the way that maybe we have seen it in films, but it's more this idea of a shared consciousness where we all exist. We're all humans existing on the planet, but there is a stream of information that's happening, let's say, above our heads. All this information is passing by us like a river, and some of you may be inclined towards mathematics, so you learn the mathematics quicker and faster than other people. Another person is inclined for music, so they're pulling and learning from music and musical knowledge faster than anybody else. Well, the having autism and something about having nonverbal autism allows them to tap into this stream of consciousness that's above our general heads and connect that with their mom or their other people who are kind of tapped into the same level of consciousness. So I think that explanation of it sounds a little bit more believable and rational to me. You hear examples of somebody who gets hit in the head and then they all of a sudden know a different language, or whatever. No, they know something that they didn't know before. And so that theory of shared consciousness would explain those incidents that happen. But as if you are a cynic, if I realize that everything I'm saying sounds insane and hard to believe. I encourage you to go listen to the telepathy tapes, go through listen to all the episodes before you form a conclusion. I think there's a lot more information out there that we don't know. And this kind of opens your mind to the idea of that, basically.
And yeah, I mean, I understand completely the idea of being cynical or skeptical. But also, what I don't understand, I suppose, is those people who are complete materialists, who only believe what they see with their eyes and only will give credence or weight to the assumptions of the past, kind of, where I feel, man, we barely, what we don't know is so much more vast than what we do know, which in evidence daily with either new discoveries or, so much of this life. And so not to hold any space for maybe we don't know, to me is a crazy position to have.
Well, yeah, but there's precedent for it. Like, Galileo, any of these major realizations and scientific breakthroughs that have happened over time, that person becomes a pariah.
Yeah.
And then eventually there's a few believers because they realize reality. And then eventually it becomes whole truth. And you can't even imagine a time that existed before. And this really does feel like one of those discoveries. It's been identified scientifically. But the other thing that they do great in this series is addressing why people are so reticent to embrace this new information. And there's an entire that our society is built on that idea of materialism that you're talking about. And so it would disrupt everything. It
Yes.
would disrupt every major corporation. It would disrupt every banking relationship. It would disrupt all of it. And so they do a really good job of explaining what that looks like and the resistance.
Well, yeah, definitely worth a listen and very, very fascinating. I was utterly fascinated by the whole thing, but also found myself not having a hard time believing it. In terms of it made sense, right? That yeah, there's different kinds of communication. There's ways of communicating that we can't see or can't feel. Yeah, made sense.
It's less crazy to me than understanding that your and my internet signals are being bounced off a satellite in outer space so that you we can communicate.
Man, I remember the first time. I think my mind has been blown a lot in these almost 50 years of life. I can't remember something that blew my mind more than the fax machine. It just, for some reason, like voices going through wires, I don't know how that made more sense. But writing going through wires, I was just like, how does this, it gets jumbled up and it travels on a wire and then comes out writing? How is this?
So my experience similar to that was a record, a vinyl record. Like the idea that you could play an instrument and sing into a machine that captures the music and then scratches it with a needle onto a piece of vinyl in such a way that replicates the music that comes out.
And
Like
not just
how do you
replicates it beautifully.
I know, like just through vibration.
Yes.
Like how do you get a piece of vinyl, get a needle and scratch a sequence of vibrations to represent something that you heard previously? It is unbelievable.
And not just like one note or one instrument, an orchestra's worth of instruments getting faithfully represented as a needle drags across a piece of vinyl.
I feel so dumb
So dumb.
that
So
other
dumb.
people had the ingenuity to do it. And that was a long time ago. That was
Yeah,
like
records,
that was yeah, that was crude man who figured out
phonographs.
how to do that. And the technology has been you know, available for me to study all along and I still have zero concept of how it is possible.
Baffling. Baffling David Lee
Dumb.
Scales. Well, today, January 12th, for those wondering, this is Noble episode 71, and today's theme, David Lee Scales, a moment of silence. Uh, how often how often do you experience moments of silence in your life in terms of something happened, let's have a moment of silence?
Rarely.
Yeah, it happens more.
Not often enough.
Nope, happens more and more rarely. So we are going to take a few minutes today to have various lengths of moments of silence for things or people. You are going to determine how long, what period of silence these people get. Okay? So we're
I'm going to set a timer.
yeah, you're gonna set it and
Now,
you're gonna call and we are gonna have a moment of silence. And dear listener, I invite you to have a moment of silence along with us. If you're in your car, if you're at home, if you're at work, just pause. And these things, it's important.
so uh, as always, I don't know what our topic is going to be. So this is all news to me, but I'm just thinking on the fly here that the most extreme moment of silence, I'm going to limit to 10 seconds. So if you present, you know, Mother Teresa just died, okay, she gets a full 10-second moment of silence because I don't want listeners to have to sit through 2 minutes of silence. And then for ones who I, you know, don't think deserve any silence, they get one
We'll just go
second.
on. Okay, well,
We're on a 1 to 10 scale.
our first group here, David Lee Scales, is Labubu collectors. Were you aware of the Labubu craze?
I am, yeah, just kind of on a very cursory level aware.
Okay, so for those who don't know, the Labubu was a doll that came out. It has kind of a monster's face and a fuzzy body. And Labubu's just popped this. I don't know if it was this past summer. I don't know how many months ago, but just went crazy. And it was the typical, I think, I don't know how often, but, it was Cabbage Patch Kids for a while where, oh man, the Cabbage Patch Kid, everybody going crazy for Cabbage Patch Kids. collectible items, right? These things that all of a sudden everyone wants to collect, Pokemon cards, whatever the thing is. So Labubu's huge. People would go out and spend, I don't know how much, but a lot of money on these dolls, collecting them. It's like crazy hype. Hate to tell you, David Lee Scales, the Labubu market has collapsed. So all of those people who went and spent $100 on a Labubu with ocean blue eyes or whatever the specific Labubu was, that was, the ultra rare Labubu, market's collapsed. You can get any one of them now for pennies on the dollar. People have Labubu collections, worthless. How many seconds do Labubu collectors get?
Do you want to give me a start time?
Yeah, I mean, how many seconds do they get of silence for them?
Let's go ahead and start right now. No silence. They got
Okay,
half a second of silence.
have you ever collected anything that you thought, you know what, this is going to be worth something someday? I'm going to put this away.
Wine is the only thing.
Okay,
But there's very few wines that actually are kind of a guaranteed return on that investment, and fewer now than ever. There was a moment of time where you can kind of bank on certain things. But my general thought on all of this is, okay, by the way, I just saw on Instagram this weekend that these Trader Joe's bags, the canvas bags that you could buy at Trader
yes,
Joe's for
are
$3,
are fashion
yeah,
items now.
in Japan, where there
Yes,
is no Trader Joe's, they sell for up to 15,000 US dollars. It's a $3 item here, selling for 15,000 there. And I saw that, and of course, I had the same thought you did, which is, oh my God, I wish I would have known this. I would have bought hundreds of them and went over and gotten rich real quick. But the reality is, none of us have the crystal ball, and none of us are tracking the world's markets for all of this stuff enough, well enough and sophisticated enough to make smart plays. And if you're going to try to get into day trading on stuffed animals and canvas bags, you're going to lose 9.9 times out of 10, right? So there's no way to do that, to make a business out of that. It's just insane. There's better things to do to spend your time and money on. So, but I understand people who are fanatical about Beanie Babies or Labubus or whatever it is. So they should only collect those because they're passionate about those things. You should only collect things that you are passionate about. Never ever make the purchase with the idea of a resale in mind. That's what I think.
so true, so true. Wise words here on Noble Rot for all those collectors out there. Just collect what you love.
Collect what you love. If it happens to gain money or gain value at some point, um,
Icing.
don't try to time yeah, like icing on the cake, but also don't even try to time the market, because there are things that uh, seem to have gone up in value infinitely and perpetually. Guess what? Your kids can be the beneficiaries of those. But don't try to time the exit of the market for yourself, because that takes away from the joy and the passion that you originally got into collecting the thing for.
So true. Wisdom here. Okay, moving along. How much
But
time?
wait,
Yeah.
real quick. I actually relish a little bit in the Labubu market exploding, because those things were ugly and I was offended that they ever got popular in the first place.
I mean, that's the thing. You never can tell what is going to get popular. And more often than not, it feels that what does get popular are hideous little tchotchkes.
Yeah, it, I thought they were hideous, and then I heard the name, and then I was extra pissed. So
Out.
Labubu, go away.
No silence for you. Okay, what about David Lee Scales? How many minutes, I mean, seconds do we give our dear friend Britt Merrick and the rest of his Grateful Dead ilk for their sorrow at the passing of Bob Weir, who just died, I think, this weekend? Bob Weir, founding member of the Grateful Dead, dead. How much time? Zero
Moment of
seconds.
silence starts right now. Five seconds.
Grateful Dead fans get a full 5 seconds for the passing of Bob Weir. Wow, that's like a solid moment of silence.
Very solid moment of silence, and only interrupted because I don't think Bob Weir would have wanted silence. I think he would have wanted a cacophony of sound.
He would have wanted jam bands. He would have wanted a 35-minute song that went nowhere and wasn't very good to begin with.
I'm going to blow your mind right now.
You're a Grateful Dead fan now.
No, even better.
You know Bob Weir.
Yeah.
You knew Bob Weir.
How
did you know Bob Weir?
I cannot believe I never told you this. I've been emailing with a Bob Weir for 2 to 3 years.
I do remember you telling me this, but you were unsure if it was the Bob Weir or a Bob Weir.
Correct, but all signs indicate it was the great Garte Bob Weir.
That is amazing.
So because of his passing this weekend, I woke up this morning and crafted an email and sent it back to that email account, basically saying, actually, I'll just read to you what I wrote.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me reading it.
Absolutely.
And I will say his first email that came through, I have it pulled up right here. It was March 29th, 2023. And he dives deep into my musical preferences that I play on Surf Splendor episodes. So he's already referencing music from the get-go. Doesn't identify himself. His email address is actually as a Robert Weir, not a Bob Weir. And at the bottom of his email, he says, "No names, please." So that's already sus.
That suggests something.
And I could read to you that email, and he actually listened to the Grit, and he said it was antidepressive, sort of. I'll read. You'll love his emails. He's very, lyrical writer. His emails are really beautiful to read. But so maybe we can get into his emails at some point. But the fact that he asked me not to use his name makes me want to, I was preserving his anonymity in life, but maybe we don't have to anymore. The email that I sent to him today says, Bob, along with the world, I was so deeply saddened to hear the news of Bob Weir's passing, and then warmed by the tributes and farewells. It inspired me to search these old email exchanges that I've had with a Bob Weir, who would not confirm that he was one and the same, but certainly wrote like a lyricist. With old curiosities piqued, it struck me, if I could get a reply to another email, then I would know that poetic prose is a shared talent amongst all Bob Weirs. Or, then again, maybe the great Weir is capable of sending interstellar Gmail transmissions across the astral plane. I'm happy to live in either of those realities. Thanks for the banter, Bob. Onward, David Scales.
Fantastic. Well, I am on pins and needles now, knowing or wondering if a Bob Weir is going to respond, or, I suppose, telepathy tape style, if the Bob Weir is responding beyond the pale. I mean veil.
Yeah.
Not the pale.
Yeah. Well, I'll go through one more exchange. I emailed him on May 31st, 2024. And I said, Mr. Weir, Chas Smith and I ventured north to Channel Islands surfboards this morning to engage with one Britt Merrick in the Great Dead debate. After a few mentions of the great Bob Weir, it struck me. I've emailed with a listener named Bob Weir, a somewhat common name, I suppose, but could you possibly be the great Bob Weir? Please divulge and know that your secret will be safe with me and Britt. ... and Britt. Gratefully, David Scales. He replied to that the same day, about 30 minutes later, and said, DLS, what some consider coincidence, I consider synchronicity. Hear tell, LSD and the wall of sound, not positive noise, have jilted my perspective to the point that I've realized that a name is only a name. Call me the enlightened one, call me the beckoner of the universal spirit, call me a dirty hippie, but definitely don't call me Chaz. Yes, Bob Weir is a common name, maybe slightly more common than David Lee. If anyone could understand what it was like to be Bob Weir in a world of Bob Weirs, it's David Lee Scales. P.S. Worth noting that the recently departed Billy Walton was one of the few honorary members of the GD. He was a gritty one. Stop work, start life. Bob Weir.
Wow. Okay. If this is really Bob Weir, even if it's not, I might be now officially a Grateful Dead fan.
Incredible, right?
Absolutely incredible. I love this so much.
So I sent that to Britt because, of course, Britt is a huge fan and would love to know that we were communicating with and that being heard by Bob Weir. And Britt replied and he goes, you know what? That is the weirdest email. And also, creepily enough, Bob Weir uses the phrase hear tell all the time. And that is kind of a reveal.
Wow.
So, again, never got confirmation other than, those types of replies from him. But I emailed him this morning. And if he replies back, then we can say it was all fun. Fun to dream about it. But also, this guy is a great communicator too. So it's fun to banter with him.
Win-win. Well, wow. Okay. A deserved
So yeah,
5 seconds.
So 5 seconds because we do want to honor the man and the work. But again, I don't think he would want the silence.
No. Okay. Well, love it. Love it. Love it. Moving on.
And for the record, for anybody who's unaware, Bob Weir is was a surfer. The Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead. Go look. Chad Nelson, the CEO of Surfrider, just posted a carousel of photos with Bob Weir surfing at Surf Ranch and stuff. So yeah, Bob Weir was known in surf communities for his surfing. I don't think that I ever saw it published in mainstream media, but apparently he was a surfer. Also something that I was unaware of until we started having these exchanges.
Well, this is it. And you've heard it here first, and maybe the only time I've ever said this in my entire, for sure, the only time I've ever said this. This is it. If Bob Weir, if that is the Bob Weir, I'm officially a Grateful Dead fan. I will buy the t-shirt. I will put the dancing bears on the car. I'm all in.
He was a fan of yours, man. And yeah, maybe I will get into the other emails that we sent because he provided some barrel or Nas and just funny commentary about our work.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I hate to move on from Bob Weir. Would love to sit here and wallow in the Weir, but we have more moments of silence to either give or not give. Our next one, Lord Mandelson. Are you aware of Lord Mandelson? Lord Mandelson was the former British UK ambassador to the United States, but he got his ambassadorship pulled because he was bros with Jeffrey Epstein unapologetically. Some of the emails after Epstein had been convicted already were from Mandelson, telling him that he was getting a bum steer and all this kind of stuff, right? So it's not like Mandelson was unaware. He was very aware of who Epstein was, continued a correspondence with Epstein post pedophile conviction number 1. But Lord Mandelson just gave an interview. He was kept out, he claims. He was kept away from all the sordid business because he's gay. How many seconds does Lord Mandelson get for being bros with Jeffrey Epstein, getting canceled for Jeffrey Epstein, but not getting to partake in any Jeffrey Epstein naughtiness because his sexual orientation?
Start the clock now, and we're done. No silence whatsoever needed.
Lord Mandelson, he just gave an interview and they gave him an opportunity to apologize for his relationship, and he refused to apologize. He said, which I kind of get, to be quite frank. He said, look, I would apologize if I did something wrong. I had no idea anything about this dude, except for, I suppose, he did know that he got convicted and should have said, yes, I am sorry that I continued correspondence with a convicted pedophile.
I know that there's situations where even wives, the BTK killer's wife didn't know that her husband was a serial killer, kind of a thing. And it happens. It seems like Jeffrey Epstein was wearing this on his sleeve and that this was his brand and this was what his entire life's work was devoted to, was this human trafficking, prostitution scheme.
The fact that when you get on his plane and it's called the Lolita Express seems like there's not a lot of room for ambiguity there.
If I had a friend who didn't divulge all of their information, but there was always underage girls hanging around him and flying on his private jet to his private island, I would have some questions.
Yeah, you'd wonder.
I'd have some questions. And when things got revealed through the, well, when the indictments happened, when an arrest happened, when convictions happened, uh, and and they're making documentaries about him, I would know which side of the line to stand on at that point.
Lord Mandelson, you get nothing.
And
Uh,
also, does being gay absolve you?
no, he made it. He made it his absolution, though. He was like, "Yeah, I wasn't invited because I'm gay. Wasn't invited
That
into
doesn't
those rooms."
that rationale alone screams guilt to me, because I don't think I mean, I think I'm sure there's room for any type of sexuality at Jeffrey Epstein's table.
I would think that Jeffrey Epstein would not be a purist when it came to sexual orientation.
No, he's like, dude, I'm hetero only. I only support hetero missionary style, and that's where I draw the line.
Yeah,
The guy's
with young
having
women.
sex
That's
with
it.
Yeah, the guy's having sex with young teenage women and trafficking them across states. He's into kinky stuff, everybody. I don't think he would be offended by the idea of his buddy being gay.
Yeah, sorry about it, Lord Mandelson. Get nothing.
Just
Uh,
just a guess.
okay, here we go. Here might be a tough one, David Lee Scales. I know this is no Barat. This is not the grit. It is not a program about surfing. But yesterday was a beautiful day down in North County, San Diego. I went for a jog on the beach because I knew there was no waves. And by no waves, I literally mean it was a lake. As I ran up to Seaside, not market, the break, I saw a big tent there and realized they were doing a surf contest. And I ran by and heard the announcers trying to talk and whatnot. And there was kids in the water. And I'm not talking it was small. I'm not talking it was knee high. I'm not talking it was shin high. I'm talking absolutely flat. And there was kids in the water trying to have a contest in waves under ankle high. How much silence do those children get?
Let me go start the timer now. 2 seconds.
2 seconds for kids in a surf contest without surf.
They know not the error of their ways. So I give them 2 seconds. I remember what it was like to be young and frothed and wanting to compete. And so you just commit to the cause. But they're going to have to learn their lessons the hard way. There's a million better things to be doing with their time on that Sunday. And
I would
putting
hope
on a jersey is not one of them.
I would hope that there would be, extenuating circumstances if there's lightning strikes happening on a soccer pitch, they're going to cancel the game, right? How can, in surfing, I get that they have the permit. It was permitted for this time. It's just bad luck. We just got to call it off because not only does it make surfing look silly and bad, these kids have to be miserable out there. There's nothing to even begin to scratch into. Let's just call it off, people. There's no waves, no surf.
Famously, Dave Parmenter in a OP Pro, the waves were small at Huntington South Side, and he paddled out on a longboard. He was in a shortboard competition, but paddled out on a longboard, basically saying, like, these are perfect longboard waves. I'm going to do what the right thing to do is here. I'm going to implement that same strategy if I had a kid who wanted to compete in surfing and would have shown up with a fishing pole that day.
Yeah, great plan.
It'd be like, hey, son, I know we brought our surfboards down, but look, there's no surf. So during your heat, we're going to catch the biggest fish.
Great idea. Well, they got 2 seconds at least. That is 2 seconds more than Lord Mandelson or Labubu collectors. So they're second place so far in terms of our moments of silence.
Well, look, I blame the parents. The adults are the ones who should have never come down and put on the charade.
Yeah, just don't show. If it's tiny, you don't. It's not even like they're learning heat strategy or anything at that point, right? There's no waves. There's nothing happening out there except bobbing in the water. Sad. Well, our last moment of silence is for us, David Lee Scales. How many seconds do you give you and I for not getting nominated for a Golden Globe? This year, the first year ever, podcasting was a Golden Globe nominee or Golden Globe category. Were you aware of that?
I heard that in her opening monologue, Nikki's opening monologue, but I didn't stick around to see which ones were nominated.
Okay, so I accidentally caught the podcast category. The podcasts who were up for awards. It was Amy Poehler's podcast, which I can't remember what it's called. It was Call Her Daddy, that one, or Don't Call Her Daddy, or whatever, that one. Smartless, Smartless, the one that gets regularly dragged on this show for some reason. Uh, an NPR show and some other smarty pants one. And Amy Poehler took the hardware for Dak Shepard was one too.
Oh,
Amy
okay.
Poehler took the hardware, and I was just thinking, man, David Lee, you, I mean, both of us together, but you in particular, have had a podcast longer than any one of those who were nominated by far. Years more, years and years more. I don't even know how long Amy Poehler's is. So I guess this is mostly a moment of silence for you. How long do you give yourself for not being nominated, not even being considered for a Golden Globe in podcast excellence?
We're gonna start the timer right now, and we're done. I'm gonna go 1 second. So
Okay.
0.75 seconds.
Uh,
Um, I do feel definitely overlooked. It is a shame. My name should have been up there, but I don't need any silence. I'm gonna continue doing the work regardless.
I was trying to figure out how they chose the podcast in the category because it's not wasn't the like for one, how is Joe Rogan not up? If we're going to go bigness or reach or, how did these podcasts get chosen? It seemed like a random smattering of the podcasts, whoever the producer of the Golden Globes listened to, with let's throw one from NPR in too, just because we need a smarty pants ones in there. But otherwise, it's going to just be our Hollywood buddy podcast. Seems silly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. I think there's probably a lot of politics at play. A lot of those big podcasts are now owned by, giant corporations like Spotify. And so I have to imagine their PR teams are involved in all this kind of thing. They're campaigning for this. Um, but the best podcasts that I've ever heard of are so niche that they would never, ever translate to a broad audience. And the broad audience ones hold so little appeal to me that it's like they're not interesting at all. Like, go ahead, you guys can have the awards, but I'm not interested in listening.
There has to be, it made me think, for sure there's a podcast award show thing, isn't there? There's got to be.
Yeah, there are pod awards. I don't keep up with them, but yeah, there are.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. Yeah, them talking about podcasts in a really awkward way on stage. It was like it felt like 10 years ago when what's this new medium that people are doing, right? It was crazy. Like even Nikki Glazer's kind of monologue intro into podcasts are what you do. They had a whole skit set up, right? Where Nikki Glazer goes out into her car and turns on her podcast and just is basically getting fed served ads, trying to get to the thing. And then Mark Maron comes up and knocks on her window eventually and says, "Have you heard of Squarespace?" Right? So it all seemed like this, the somewhat funny, but very superficial joke about this podcasting thing, right? Like podcasting in air quotes. I'm like, what are you people doing? This is like has been a massive industry now for a massive scale for at least 5 years at this point. Like this is not some new niche. Oh, there's this thing called podcasting. What? It's like the radio, except it's not.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, the only reason they would have been included in the Golden Globes is because the medium has shifted to visual platforms. If it was just audio, or if the main audience was still on audio, I don't think that they would have been included. But I'm now starting to see um, the visuals not only on YouTube, but on HBO. Like I log into HBO Max, it's like you might also enjoy, and it feeds me an actual
Podcast.
podcast yeah, it's a podcast, but it's shot in a studio with professional lighting, professional editing, everything. It's just people talking. It's basically becoming a talk show. It's an alternative to late night
Late
with
night.
whoever. Yeah, now we have a bunch of podcasts, and that's the Amy Poehler one, Call Her Daddy, Smartless. They all have that level of production quality for the video. So I think
Do you,
that's really what they're looking at.
do you watch any podcasts?
No, but I will see the short cut downs on YouTube. When I log on, it'll feed me, what maybe Joe Rogan's. Here's a 3 minute snippet. And sometimes I'll watch the 3 minute snippet because it has a salacious title. And then from that, I'm more interested to listen to the full episode. But if I listen to the full episode, it won't be the video. It'll be during my time where I'm not looking at a screen, I'll listen to it.
I suppose looking at it in the way that this is the new late night, like I think people used to tune into what? Carson. And these hosts who had real interview skills, and you learn, you sit down and you learn something because Johnny Carson's a good, he's funny, but he's also a good host who asks good questions. And I don't think Jimmy Kimmel asks good questions, right? I suppose you watch his show for some laughs and then whatever. But I guess the idea of a good interviewer or watching a good interview, there's room for that. I like it.
There's room for it. Those guys, it was different for Carson and for Kimmel. The equivalent would be Charlie Rose.
Yes, that's who I meant more than Carson.
Yeah, what's the other? Can't think of the.
I mean, even
Guy
William
who
F.
wore suspenders. Larry King.
Larry King. I mean, even William F. Buckley Jr. and stuff, right? Like there was these sort of long form interviews to air.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay, so we only have the Labubu's got none. Kids surfing in a contest with waves under 1 foot. Did they get 2 seconds?
They got 2 seconds.
Grateful Dead fans got 5 seconds. And how many seconds? Lord Mandelson got no seconds. And how many seconds did you get again? You got 1 second?
0.75.
Okay, so we're at basically 7 seconds, 7.75 seconds of silence is what today's show garnered.
You know what, though? Mark Maron, since you mentioned him, stopped podcasting. He retired. This might be the first guy who officially retired from podcasting. Other people gave it up at times, but he chose to exit while he was at the top of his game. So maybe I'd give him 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's funny reading about, and I don't know if Mark Maron just had burnout, because it's not like Mark Maron famously did it from his garage in Highland Park or wherever he lives, right? So it's the lift there, and I get there is prep, there is work that gets done, and I suppose he just got over it. You would think that he would have, just by virtue of being one of the first, could have ridden that forever.
He could, but from my perspective, it seems like he just got busy with more Hollywood offers, and the commitment of 2 a week for 2 or 3 hours at a time was very difficult for him to juggle.
And I suppose I do like a good retirement. I like knowing when your time has come, whether or not the general public knows that, but you having a feeling in your own heart that, hey, I ain't going to Kelly Slater this thing. My time, I have given my best. I have done what I can, and now I am through.
His comedy career has taken off tremendously, probably because of the podcast largely, but he's playing huge venues now, and he could do it all year round, and he's acting in major motion pictures and television shows. So I have a feeling maybe he will retire from that eventually and maybe bring WTF back in the future.
Well, here's to hoping. Okay, let's get into our heroes and zeros of the week. You have any?
I do. Can I do best thing I saw this week?
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Best thing you saw this week.
It's a film. The lead actress actually won for lead actress last night at the Golden Globes. And the film is called If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You.
I had read this and saw that she had won and never even heard about this film. Explain.
Yeah. I've been tracking it for months because I've been wanting to see it, but I wasn't going to go to the theaters, and renting it was like $20. And so last night I looked it up and it was only $5 to rent. So I went ahead and purchased, and it was excellent. It was dark, It's basically, yeah, even if you watch the trailer, I don't think you'll understand what the film's about. But it is this downward spiral. You're along the ride with Rose Byrne as the lead actress as she's on a downward spiral as a mother and a professional through into psychosis due to overwork and stress, basically. So it's relatable for any of us who are parents and working. It's relatable to a certain degree. You're like, man, I feel like that. But she goes off the deep end in a very, very serious way. Um, and it's just dark.
So highly recommend.
Not for everybody, but I definitely thought it was excellent. I thought trying to execute what I just said, like, can we watch somebody spiral out? And it's also kind of to the point where if you are spiraling out, things in your head are bigger than they are in real life. And so through the film, you're not sure if she's hallucinating it or if it's actually a real problem. And the way that they shoot it is such that she's the only one who witnesses this thing. And so then she reports that back to her absentee husband. And he's on the phone getting annoyed with her, like, oh God, you're overreacting. But as the viewer of the film, you're not sure if she's overreacting or not, because you're like, is that hole in the ceiling from the upstairs neighbor's flood that they had, the hole that came through in her ceiling, is it actually that big? And does it have mold in it? And is she getting sick from it? Or is it a smaller hole and it's no big deal and she is overacting? You're never sure.
That's great. I mean, I suppose, beautiful or interesting picture of what life is today, right? When there is so many layers of this through life. Of when I hear people who have mold toxicity, right? Early on when I first started hearing this, I was like, yeah, you're making this stuff up. You're looking for something to be sick about, but then you think, oh, oops, science is in. Well, yeah, like it feels like there's so much of this happening all around us every day. Like, are you looking for something to be causing you a problem, or is this thing causing you a problem? And that's why things are the way they are for you.
Totally. And it's so well made. The way that information and plot points get revealed took me by complete surprise multiple times throughout the movie. And it has a fantastic ending, very, very poignant ending. And the role is so freaking complex. Like, I've never seen a character this complex, I don't think, ever. And Rose Byrne hit an absolute grand slam. Like, she was incredible in it.
And won the Golden Globe.
She's going to win an Oscar. I can't imagine another role that I've seen in the last decade that even comes close.
Begonia.
No, this is way more complex as a character. I mean, there's a sci-fi element to that. Like, this is true life.
Directly into the queue then. Cannot wait to watch this.
Okay, good.
Well, I'm going to go on to my hero real quick, because my hero dovetails with what I watched this week. My hero of the week, Andres Roca-Rey. Oh, yeah. My goodness. My goodness. Andres Roca-Rey, the Peruvian Spanish bullfighter. David Lee recommended a couple weeks ago now, Afternoons of Solitude, which is a documentary about bullfighting. Calling it a documentary does it an injustice. It's not a documentary. It is a piece of art. Put it on last night by myself. 2 hours, absolutely transfixed. It is one of the most beautiful things I've ever watched, and I'm a little too close to it at this point, but I gotta think it's at this point, it might be my favorite film I've ever seen in my entire life. And Andres Roca-Rey, as a both artist, performer, athlete, subject, all of it was magnificent.
Speaking of performer, the face that he makes the faces are just incredible. Like, it made me understand instantly the showmanship involved in this thing. Like, he was doing as well as Rose Byrne did in the film that I
mesmerizing
that character.
You realize that also watching somebody, because he's still young, And anyone who has not seen the film, which I'm imagining is most of you, it is it's not nothing like you're going to think. It's not a narrative. It is not a interview. David Lee's already explained this. It's not. It's just a still images, and it's not even like pull. You never are pulled back and see the whole ring. You never once see the whole bull ring. It's zoomed in close, always, and watching somebody in their prime. He's considered by many to be the greatest bullfighter alive right now. But watching somebody in their prime going for not just the greatest alive right now, going for one of the greatest of all time, and watching them both aim for that and strive for it is magnificent.
There's moments you could see. So the way that these fights, these bullfights play out is when the bull comes into the ring full of vim and vigor, the bullfighters keep a certain amount of distance. And really, it becomes a dance of wearing the bull out and closing that distance until they get to the point where they are almost, um, they've got the bull under control, basically. And then, of course, they kill the bull. But they got the bull right next to them, and they can be within millimeters of the bull and still move out of position because they've worn it down. And so the wearing down process is the bullfighter, the matador's job is like, how close can I get while they still have the vim and vigor more than that matador does, you know? So that's kind of what the tension that you're watching play out. But he misjudges it a couple of times and gets taken out by the bull. And it's
Time taken out.
unbelievable. Big
Yeah.
time taken out. It's insane.
I mean, watching also, it's not only that, it's how close you can get in all of it. And again, kid in ballet, so I've been focused and studied on ballet for the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years, whatever it's been of my life, longer than that at this point, I guess. And it's those striking that position, right? So it's not just you're close to the bull, hunched over. Like there's a style. It is legs straight, chest out. There's a way where you have the form and also the function is just, again, mesmerizing. Cannot recommend it enough. And thank you, David Lee, for bringing it into my sight.
Well, when I first recommended it to you, I remember saying I wasn't sure the span of time that transpires through the course of the documentary. Is it over the course of multiple fights, 2 weeks? Like, who knows? But I read a review about it just yesterday, and it said that it was the day in a life. It was like from the moment he put on his clothes in the morning till the moment he took them off at night, implying that it was one day.
No, because they're going from he's in different kits. He's getting dressed into
That's what I
different, and it's also, I know for a fact they were in Madrid, they were in Bilbao, they were in Seville,
Okay.
and they're not making it very specific, or it's not about place ever, and they might have been even in Peru at some point, though I don't. They were going to Peru for sure at some point. He's Peruvian, or Peruvian Spanish, I think, but it was definitely for sure Seville, Madrid, and Bilbao at the very least.
Okay, that's how I experienced it. It was at different locations over a span of time. But when I read that review, I thought, wow, that would actually be
Incredible.
That'd be incredible if it was just one day. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize they could have multiple fights in one day, which I don't think they can.
They do. I mean, I know they fight multiple bulls in one day, but I don't know how many. I think they fight 2, maybe 3, maximum. But in any case, yeah, a marvelous work of art. And I don't even have a 0. I was so captivated by Andreas Rocaré that's all I got. What do you got?
I'll give you a 0 and then we'll end with a hero. My 0 is XAI's Grok. So XAI is the AI company for X, and Grok is their platform, and it's generating nudes of people by request. So Grok
Kids
is
too.
kind of, yeah, exactly. So Grok is designed, by the way, in Elon's own reflection, I think, is kind of the way that he designed it, which is to be sarcastic and irreverent. Like Grok it's distinguishing itself as being more playful and fun, right? So that's worth noting if you're going to be using the platform. But basically, what users have been doing is there's an image generator. They go on there and I think it started with, here's a picture of a woman that I'm attracted to. Can you undress her? So Grok will send you back the undressed, the nude of non-consenting women because somebody else is submitting the photo. And it's gotten worse. Now they're doing it, people are doing it for kids. So they're generating child pornography using Grok, and Grok is not policing it. And apparently, it's not illegal, certainly not in the US. I don't know about other countries, but it is illegal to take nude images of children, but it's not illegal to ask an AI tool to generate the nude images of children. So we're in a real legal gray area here. And initially, when I started seeing controls being put on social media platforms, I was very not against it, but skeptical of it. I was like, man, how are you going to police Facebook? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much user generated content. I don't know that Facebook can be sophisticated enough to build rules and parameters to fence it all in. But now, a decade later, I'm looking back going, holy crap, we absolutely need to fence this stuff in. And you absolutely can. Like, the AI is sophisticated enough to know nudity, and you can just put parameters around the type of nudity that it's allowed to generate. So shame on X for allowing this to happen in the first place, but then also for not immediately addressing or identifying the problem and then addressing the problem. Instead, Elon Musk posted a photo of himself, defending it, and then posted a photo of himself in a two-piece bikini that he had Grok generate.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's silly when it comes down. I get the idea of freedom and all, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, all this. But as society, there is rules that we all live by about A, at the very baseline, nude children, and B, above that, nudity without consent, right? Like, and AIs are good enough now where obviously it's not real, quote unquote, but it's a close enough, facsimile where it's hard to tell the difference. And if it's hard to tell the difference, then you can't do it. You just cannot do that.
Totally. I think that baseline, we have to agree, child pornography is bad.
Yes.
If we can't agree on that, I don't want to live in this society, or I don't want to live in the same society with those who think that it's okay, or that there's any sort of discussion to be had whether it's okay.
And that it's okay because it's a slippery slope. Once you start, restricting and, putting parameters on communication, then who knows where we go. No, you put parameters on that community. It's not like this idea of slippery slope, which I feel the same about guns, right? No, it's not a slippery slope. You can outlaw machine guns, and that's not like, well, there we go. Now we've eroded gun ownership for everybody. No, there's a bridge too far always, and cut that bridge too far off.
Yeah, completely. So Grok and their operation of it is my zero of the week. And then my hero, on the other hand, I was thinking through our conversations on the grid on Friday and just other stuff that's happening in the news. In these troubled times, the only antidote that I can identify is compassion, and the other one is education. And because you've talked about, it's hard to blame Trump at this point. You got to blame everybody around him that supports him and amplifies the rhetoric and all that sort of thing. And I was like, I don't know, it's easy to dupe dumb people into believing whatever it is that, a cult leader is into, let's say. I'm not talking about Trump necessarily here. I'm just saying, like, it's easy to dupe dumb people instead of smart people. So the antidote is education, right? Like, become educated and develop critical thinking and develop your own thoughts. Analyze information, develop your own thoughts, make your own decisions. It's getting harder to do that because there's so much information on the internet from people who seem like experts. So whether it's dietary advice or health and wellness or whatever, it's like there's opposing information that seems equally as compelling that it's easy just to get confused. So your only bet is education, critical thinking, make the best decision for yourself. Well, this leads me to my hero, which is one man named Terry Williams. He is a former inmate in prison who now runs an education program inside Alabama prisons, helping incarcerated men earn GEDs and job certifications, which, by the way, dramatically reduces recidivism in the facilities where resources otherwise are almost non existent. So this guy deserves an absolute spotlight. I just got on YouTube the other day and like a 60 minutes article or video was they had featured this guy. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I clicked it. I watched his segment. I'm like, this guy's a hero.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Anyone who's doing work in prison anyway, that's beyond just lock them up, throw away the key, uh, treating prisoners as humans who have the capacity and capability to, I mean, what prison was supposed to be rehabilitation, and we've stopped treating it that way forever ago. Now it is a profit center, right? For all the for-profit prisons where it's just not, we make more money with them locked up. So anyone bucking that trend, hero. And good job, Terry. Deserve it.
Absolutely. I think if you ever are incarcerated, it creates a stain on your life, and it's very hard to then, if you get out of prison, it's very hard to fit into society after the fact, and especially if people hear that information. But that time in there doesn't need to be wasted. There's opportunities to do good work in there, and we've heard things about people, um, who are unjustly imprisoned, studying law, and they come out of prison with a law degree, even, or whatever. So I love the idea of using that time to better oneself, but I think that the resources are really, really thin. And I'm certainly not inclined to want to work with prisoners. I would never dedicate my time and my life to that. But I love the idea that there are people where that is where their heart is at and would be willing to do this for the betterment of these prisoners. Because look, these guys are going to come out into society one way or the other. We are going to have them in our society. And I would rather that they were educated and had the ability to get gainful employment so that they don't fall into their old ways. So I think it's a good move.
Love it. Well, thank you, David Lee. Anything else to add before we close off?
That's all I got.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. And can we